First of all, I apologise for the quality of this video. I've ordered a new selfie stick, but it hasn't turned up yet, so I'm going old school. Nonetheless, there's something going on in the news that just won't keep, because the current Labour government seems hell-bent on destroying itself, doing itself as much harm as a teenage girl with undiagnosed bipolar disorder whose boyfriend has just left her. So, last week, David Lammy, the Justice Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and I swear he only has that position because he's the only man in Britain who can make Keir Starmer look credible. He stood in at PMQs whilst Keith Stalin skulked off somewhere else, and he wasn't wearing a poppy. Now, if you're not from the UK, many British people wear a poppy throughout November to remember our fallen heroes and those who've been injured in the line of service. So Lammy, upon realising his mistake, took a poppy from another minister, and that minister is a military veteran. So, to respect the people he'd forgotten about, he insulted an actual veteran. And he was utterly destroyed at PMQs, and given the nickname Calamity Lammy by Robert Jenrick, his opposite number, the Shadow Justice Minister, a man who, I predict, come the next election will either be the leader of the Tory party or will have defected to Reform. And just a few days ago, he destroyed him again, because it now transpires that 3 further prisoners have been released accidentally. Now, that isn't directly David Lammy's fault, but he's the fucking Justice Minister. It's happening on his watch. Dangerous criminals are being let out when they shouldn't be. So things couldn't get any worse. We'll now watch a clip taken from the ITV News TikTok account.
We understand that there are 3 mistakenly released prisoners currently lawfully at large. Their prison records show none of these are convicted sex offenders. I have been informed, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon that HMPPS are investigating a further case of a potential release in error on the 3rd of November who may still be at large. Of the confirmed cases, Case 1 was in prison for failing to surrender to the police and released in error in December 2024. Case 2 was in a prison for a Class B drug offence and released in error in August 2024. And Case 3 was in prison for aggravated burglary and released in error in June 2025. 2 are a British national and 1 is a foreign national offender. I will not provide any further details on individual cases. In each case, we have to consider the welfare of victims and the judgment of our law enforcement agencies.
Legally at large. That's a term I've never heard before. Yes, they are at large, but it's okay because we let them go by mistake. The issue is that, as David Lammy was saying that, the day before, he'd been informed of a 4th prisoner. So he lied openly in the House of Commons. But it gets so much worse, because it transpires that since April this year up until November, 91 prisoners have accidentally been released, including one man who was sentenced to 45 months in prison who was released at court. Not only that, but it transpires that David Lammy has a plan to free up spaces in male prisons, or rather to give spaces for male prisoners by putting female prisoners into secure accommodation, shall we say. Now, I used to know a prison warder who told me that in the UK, if you're a woman, unless you've killed someone, it's fucking hard to get locked up. And the cost to put these female prisoners in secure accommodation, £100,000 per prisoner per year. And how did this come to light? Well, it transpires that someone on David Lammy's team accidentally CC'd in Robert Jenrick on the email. Can you imagine that fucker if it was World War II? Leading up to D-Day. Send a telegram. We're going to attack Jerry in June. For months, we've been making them think that we're coming from Calais. We've even had General Patton there as a distraction. We're actually going in with the Americans and Canadians at Normandy in successive waves. Send a telegram to the Prime Minister, the President of the United States, Comrade Stalin, and, Herr Hitler. So I think Lammy is finished. He's got to go. if he's got any decency, he'll resign, but I doubt he has any decency. But it's not just him who's in trouble, because there's blood in the water and the sharks are circling for none other than Keir Starmer. Because last night a story broke that 3 or 4 prominent Labour politicians, and bear in mind they have trouble between 3 and 4, were preparing a leadership challenge against the Prime Minister, including the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. The weird thing is that this morning, that whole story has been withdrawn. So I think one of 3 things has happened there. The first is, maybe Keir Starmer has used his most trusted aides to stir things up, to find out who's up against him, and draw them out. Now, I don't think Starmer is that intelligent. Secondly, I think maybe those MPs were going to mount a challenge, realised it would backfire and back down, calling it fake news. Or thirdly, someone in the Labour press office has tried to stir this story up, in effect creating a false scandal. Because they need more fucking scandal, don't they? Now, personally, I could see some prominent Labour ministers moving against the PM straight after the upcoming disastrous budget, because they don't want to go to the May local elections knowing that they're walking into effectively live gunfire, being led by the worst general in all history. Let's take a look at him.
I think the political divide now is between what I call patriotic national renewal, which is what this Labour government is doing, bringing people together, whether it's partnership working here or across the country, finding those points of connection, or, and this is what I fear, the toxic division of Reform and others on the right in politics, where they're tearing our country apart. Some of the rhetoric we're hearing, racist rhetoric, divisive rhetoric, that frankly I thought we'd dealt with decades ago, is returning to politics, and it makes people feel very scared. And we have to stand up to that racism, to that division, and we have to proudly say that to be British is to be concerned for others, is to be reasonable, is to be tolerant and compassionate, and we're proud of that.
This proves how fucking tone deaf that man is. Oh, Labour is bringing people together. The country has never been this divided. The only thing we agree on, Keir, is most of us fucking hates you. And then turning round and calling Reform divisive and racist. Read the sodding room. Every poll says that Reform are on for a massive landslide victory. And our current Prime Minister, rather than trying to change people's minds, is effectively going, if you're thinking of voting for Reform, then you're a racist. I know I've said it 100 times before. I knew when they got in they'd be bad. I had no idea they'd be this bad. Anyway, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. The picture quality is usually better than this. If you can leave a like, a comment or share the video, that really helps with the algorithm. If you'd like to support me in making these videos, there are links in the description to buy me a coffee and to my Patreon. And as ever, thanks for watching. Can you imagine this fucker during the Second World War working for the German U-boat service, effectively popping up next to a British destroyer and giving them an Enigma an Enigma machine and a code breaking book? That's a bit niche anyway. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I knew they'd be bad. I had no bollocks. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I knew when they got in they would be bad. I had no idea they would be bollocks.